The force that created us is expressing itself through our existence. And I believe that everything that we do, everything that we create is nature expressing itself the same way that when a flower grows out of the ground or a tree grows out of the ground, it's nature expressing itself. And luckily we're given this gift of being able to practice something and grow familiar with laws of music and the laws of nature. And it's this process that we're sort of living into and gradually be able to create something in the same way that the sun has created us.
That was Red Hot Chili Peppers guitarist John Frusciante during an interview for the 2009 documentary The Heart is a Drum Machine. In that clip, you can hear his thoughts on music and how he considers the creative process as an expression of nature. His analogy at the end suggests our creative potential is a reflection of the sun and its ability to create life on Earth. However, I think he's communicating more than just an analogy, like I proposed in my video, The Story Inside the Will to Death. During that video, I interpreted the song Time Runs Out as being sung from the perspective of the creative force. So when John sings, I was born in the morning, I died at night, he's using qualities of the sun to inject new meaning into that perspective. In other words, he's using imagery of the sun as a symbol. But what does it mean to use a symbol? Talking about symbols can be tricky. They are usually referred to in a mundane way or mistaken for a metaphor. And careless interpretations can make symbolism feel arbitrary, resulting in them being dismissed as imaginary. For example, if I said the lyrics, I was born in the morning, I died at night, was referring to the sun, and the sun symbolizes John's sunburst strat, right away you should be suspicious of that interpretation. That's because there's a lack of coherent meaning between the sun and his guitar. The only way I could prove he meant it in that way would be if I had confirmation from John himself. But if that were the case, then it wouldn't be a symbol. It would just be a metaphor. Proper use of symbolic language doesn't rely on an author imparting their own meaning on a symbol, because the meaning is built in. Symbols are carriers of meaning, and they can communicate ideas to an observer without the meaning being fully understood. In my video, Frusciante Talks Songwriting, I took a clip of John improvising on his guitar while vocalizing a melody and paired it with comments he made during a 2004 Q&A regarding his songwriting process. I did this to demonstrate how his approach to music allows for symbols to pour out of his subconscious and into his songs. He doesn't force anything. He allows the ideas to come to him. In various interviews over the years, he has said that he's not fully conscious of the ideas he puts into his music. These ideas are communicated to him in a symbolic language from the entities he calls ghosts, spirits, and angels.
Just for clarity's sake, I'm referring to a non-physical, like an angel.
Yeah. I don't know, I know it involves a language that I don't consciously understand, that subconsciously somewhere in myself I do understand, and I know that I can translate ideas that they give me in their technical form, in their language, into a musical representation of that idea. Without being conscious of it, I know I'm doing that.
In episode 1, titled John Frusciante, Carl Jung, and the Self, I discuss Jung's notion of the collective unconscious and its archetypes. Their existence can help explain John's encounters with supernatural entities. Archetypal personifications like the shadow, anima, and the self can manifest in your unconscious psyche as symbols. Because of the collective nature of these unconscious symbols, it is possible for someone to derive meaning from them without knowing the author's intentions. In the next section, I'm going to try to derive meaning from the symbol of the sun that will provide new insight into the perspective of time runs out and the character of the creative force. The sun is the organizing principle as the center of our solar system. But on a deeper level, it's responsible for the cycles of day and night, the patterns of the seasons, and its energy provides for all life on Earth. It is the organizing principle of our reality and source of all creation. Is the creative force the source of creation for John Frusciante? Throughout his essay, The Creative Act, he suggests it is, with quotes like, "The artist sees three parts, what the creative force brings and perpetuates, what the artist himself twists, turns, and counteracts, and the sum the artist perceives." And, if one's love for art is great enough, their appreciation for their chance to participate in the creative act great enough, then to trust in the energy which guides them comes naturally. In the first quote, John distinguishes between the roles of the artist and the creative force. The creative force is responsible for bringing and perpetuating, while the artist only manipulates what the creative force provides. And in the second quote, he regards the creative force as the energy that guides him. The message communicated through the symbol of the sun is, we are not the ones responsible for creation. We only participate in what the creative force provides, just like the relationship between the sun and life on earth. The creative force is driving the artist in a car. The artist who attempts to take over the wheel will find the creative force unavailable to him. Now, if we go back to Time Runs Out and the lyrics, I was born in the morning, I died at night, that imagery of the sun is giving us a clue to the identity of the song's perspective. And after what we've just discussed, it wouldn't make sense for the song to be sung from John's viewpoint. It makes much more sense that the song is sung from the perspective of the creative force. So if that's the case, what is being communicated with the next lyric, I was found in a mirror, and later in the song, mirrors are water? This too is a symbol, one that I discussed in episode 1, during my interpretation of John's song, Away and Anywhere, where he sang, I see you breathing underwater. I explained how the person breathing underwater was actually a personification of the creative force reflected on the water's surface, and that the lyrics, allow me to believe you are the real me, imply he is aspiring to see himself in that reflection. I also compared John's use of this symbol with an example from Carl Jung, where he uses the phrase mirror of the water to describe his first encounter with the unconscious side of himself. The water represents the unconscious psyche, and the reflection is a personification of the self. And coincidentally, the self can also be symbolized by the sun. Here's a quote from Archetypes of the Collective Unconscious. The self is the vague feeling of a center of personality, a kind of central point within the psyche, to which everything is related, by which everything is arranged, and which is itself a source of energy. The energy of the central point is manifested in the almost irresistible compulsion and urge to become what one is. Both Frusciante's lyrics, Allow me to believe you are the real me, and Jung's quote, the urge to become what one is, describe a type of aspiration. For Jung, it's the ego personality aspiring towards the self, and for John, it is the artist aspiring to the creative force. For his 2012 EP, Letur-Lefr, he wrote on his website, the EP for me signifies the transition of two becoming one, notably symbolized by the first song on the album being the sequel to the album's last. On that sequel track, In Your Eyes, John wrote the following lyrics. Every sign is a window you look through or see yourself in. Who becomes that reflection but we who lose ourselves in abstraction? With this short set of lyrics, he has compressed essentially everything we've been discussing so far. He's saying every sign, or let's say image that carries meaning, like a symbol, is comparable to a window. By comparing a symbol to a window, he's describing their translucent nature. Symbols are carriers of meaning, and they can communicate ideas to an observer without the meaning being fully understood. You can either look through a symbol, or you can reflect on it. Looking through is the same thing as not being able to see the inherent meaning of it. To help with unpacking what it means to reflect on a symbol, take for instance these three meanings of the word reflect: contemplating, imitating, and remembering. If we apply this understanding to the symbol of the sun from our previous example, we can contemplate or reflect on the inherent meaning of the symbol to gain new understanding that we are not the source of creation, like we did earlier in the video. We can participate with the symbol by imitating or mirroring our creative process to match that of the sun creating us. And anytime we see an image of the sun, we can remember or reflect on the times that we experienced or participated with the creative force. In episode 1, I also introduced the term symbolic self as a way of describing the underwater character from Away and Anywhere. If John were to see himself as a symbol, what would he see? How does John perceive himself? I think it's fair to assume John thinks of himself as an artist. If the image is transparent, he sees the artist as an idol. For example, how teenage John would have perceived Jimi Hendrix. But if he reflects on Hendrix as a symbol of an artist and starts to see himself in that reflection, then it becomes more than an idol. He no longer sees just Jimi Hendrix. He sees the artist as an extension of nature, as a microcosm within a greater expanse of possibilities bound to one uniting force, the creative force. If he can perceive just a hint of that reality, then he can strive to become that reflection. By losing himself in abstraction, he can aspire to become his symbolic self, and a closer approximation to the creative force. This was all captured in an iconic scene from the animated movie The Lion King. In this scene, Simba is asked to look into the mirror of the water so he could see his father again. But he doesn't see his father. He only sees his own physical reflection. He was looking past the symbol and not able to perceive its underlying meaning. Next, he was asked to look harder, and was then able to see the type of reflection we just discussed. He was able to see his father as an image on the water's surface, the realization that his father's legacy lives on inside of him. This moment triggers a religious experience where his father, Mufasa, appears as the sun in the sky. Simba remembers his proper place as an extension of nature and now aspires to be that reflection he saw in the mirror of the water. It's remarkable how well the lyrics of In Your Eyes can describe that symbol from The Lion King. And as we end this video, I'd like to point out the closing lyric of that song. The final lyrics of In Your Eyes ends with, "You are the sun to me."